This is everything I've learned coaching and doing the bench press for the last 13 years. I've coached dozens, if not hundreds of people on the bench press. Some just wanted a bigger chest, others wanted strength. I'll show you how to do both. First thing you need to know is the height of your hooks or your cups. So you want these just low enough that when you grab the bar, there's a bend in your elbow, and all you need to do is extend your elbows a little bit to unrack the bar. You can get into some serious trouble if this is too high. One, on the unrack, because when you unrack, you're gonna have to, instead of extending your elbows, you're gonna have to bring your shoulders and your shoulder blades forward in order to unrack the bar. And then you lose your tightness, which we're gonna come back to tightness here in a second. The other problem is that at the end of a set, you're gonna be fatigued. You're not gonna have all of your strength. So getting the bar back onto the rack, if it's too high, you're gonna have a bad day. And if you miss, you're gonna have a real bad day. Now that we've got the proper height, time to start setting up. As I always say, with the bench press, deadlift, and squat, a lot of the work gets done before you complete your first rep. So we need to really nail our setup if we are going to have success on the exercise. So when you lay back, and here's a tip for you, the way I like to do it, I like to take each hand, put out onto the beams of the rack, and use that to force my shoulder blades back. Now, I was just talking about tightness. This is in part what I am referencing. You want your shoulder blades pulled back as hard as you can. Now, this is gonna give you a more stable base to press from, but it's also going to allow for there to be more room in your shoulder joint, so it'll be safer as well. After that, you want to put an arch in your back. Imagine you're trying to point your ribs up toward the ceiling. Third thing, the feet. Now, you can either go flat-footed or you can go toes down. I prefer toes down, but again, whatever is preferable for you, whichever feels better. Whichever way you decide to do it, just make sure that you are trying to force your toes through the front of your shoes while you're performing the reps. This is gonna create some additional tension in the lower body. Don't let your butt rise up. That's very easy to do when you're forcing your toes forward. You should just feel your quads flexing as you are doing this. Now that you've got your whole setup, time to grab the bar. And once you've grabbed the bar, you wanna go, or before you grab the bar, you wanna go to 1.5 times your shoulder width grip. So throw both arms out in front of you and go slightly wider. Now, this is just a starting point. Some people feel more comfortable with an even wider grip than 1.5 times. It's just preference, but start at about 1.5 times. Now it's time to grab the bar. Once you've grabbed the bar, you kind of have two options. You have the kind of normal grip that people use, but this is my next tip. What I prefer to do is make a diamond shape with my hand and then grab the bar. Now, what this is gonna do is gonna set the bar very deeply in the palm of your hand. This is gonna make it easier for you to keep strong wrists as you're pressing. When you have the bar too high in your hand, what's very easy to happen is getting wrist extension, right? If you have extended wrists, one, that's gonna put a ton of pressure on your wrist joint, which you don't want. But two, you're gonna lose some of the amount of reps, some of the amount of weight that you would otherwise be able to do if you're in a weak position wrist-wise. Better to be in this position, and having that bar set deeply in your hands makes that a whole lot easier. Now that you've done all that, time to start your first rep. In the video intro, you might remember that I mentioned some people want to do the bench press for strength purposes, some for muscle growth purposes, some for both, and that I would teach you how to do both. Here's where this comes in. Now, if muscle growth is your key goal with bench pressing, what you want to do as you lower the bar is you want to flare the elbows out. Now, this is going to lengthen the pecs better. and put the pecs in a strong position of leverage. It's also going to keep the triceps a little bit more out of the movement and put more of the weight, the force, the tension onto the pecs instead. If moving the maximum amount of weight possible is the intention, then you want to bring the bar to about your rib cage. This is going to more heavily involve the triceps and let you lift more weight. So pick one, decide which one you want. If both is your goal, I would say still go to the rib cage. You'll still get plenty of muscle growth in your pecs while driving your strength gains if you go to the rib cage instead of to the neck, which is more of what you would call a guillotine press. Now, as you're going down, remain confident. What tends to happen with people, especially when they've got more weight on the bar than they are sure they can lift, is they go very slowly on the way down and then press. And you can lose the rep you would otherwise be able to get because you are fatigued from going very slowly down. So you don't want to go fast, but you also don't want to go slow. A controlled eccentric is what you're looking for, and we don't want to bounce the bar off the chest to get some extra momentum for the press. You want to give a gentle tap to the sternum and then press. Or if you're doing guillotine, you want to get just shy of your clavicle or your neck and then press back up. So control, gentle tap, press. On the press as hard as you can on each rep, even if the weight is relatively light. Sometimes if the weight is too light and you press as hard as you can lose a bit of your tightness at the top. So, you know, your warm-up sets, this might happen, but once you're at a working weight, you won't really have to worry about that. Now, the lockout. When the elbows extend, like we want to stop just short of that point, right? So you don't want to fully lock the elbows out. That's going to put a ton of tension on the elbows and take tension off of your pecs. I would say to stop just short of a full lockout. After you've done your allotted amount of reps, bar goes back. Make sure you smack against the flat, if you can see that, the flat part of your cups. Smack against it, hold there for a second, and then go down. My last tip on the bench press is I would say when you're at a working weight, as often as you possibly can, get a spotter, mainly for the unrack. Now, I know some people prefer not having a spotter and it can get, you know, it can get to be kind of a pain in the ass because you'll get a bad spot, you know, but doing a good amount of communication before you start the set can cure a bad spotter. Tell them exactly what it is you're looking for before you start the set. But the main reason I like having a spotter for the bench press, not all the time, but most of the time, is for that unrack. Because when you unrack, even if you have the hooks at the proper height, like I was saying earlier, you can still run into a problem where you can lose your tightness on the unrack. But if you don't have to do all of the lifting on the unrack, you can keep your stable position that you just spent all this time establishing before your first rep. So I would recommend getting a spotter. That's it for today's video, folks. I hope that was helpful. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Check us out in your app store. That's MuscleWiki, all one word. I am Coach Ty with MuscleWiki, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.